Vice President Kamala Harris sat down for an interview with NBC's Chuck Todd on Meet the Press on Sunday. As you might expect from NBC, which is an integral part of the Biden administration's Ministry of Propaganda, most of Mr. Todd's questions were softballs. He also let Vice President Harris's evasive, rambling, and sometimes bordering on unintelligible answers go unchallenged. I, on the other hand, will not.
The border is secure.
This is JP with Political Pop Culture, and this is my take. Look, it's no secret that Vice President Harris is not exactly popular, even among Democrats. I mean, we're talking about a woman who is polling in single digits in her home state of California during her failed run for the Democratic Party's presidential nomination in the 2020 presidential election. Current polling amongst U.S. voters shows Harris has a favorability rating of only 37%. That's even less than Joe Biden's current 39%. She just isn't particularly likable. And this interview is not going to do her any favors in that department. I've got a few clips from the interview here, and I want you to watch along with me. I'm going to play these clips, and then I'm going to give you my take on each of those clips. And stay with me through to the end, because believe it or not, this gets worse the further it goes.
The fact there are 11 people right now running for Secretary of State, the keepers of the integrity of the voting system of their state, who are election deniers.
Questioning the integrity of the 2020 election does not make someone an election denier. Neither does demanding full transparency in our nation's elections. The United States should be setting the world standard for free and fair elections. We shouldn't be counting ballots behind closed doors in the middle of the night and seeing unexplained ballot dumps with the vast majority of those unexplained ballots favoring one candidate over another, in many cases against the voting trends previously seen in the area where the ballot dumps happened.
You've got...
And what's that sending? What message does that send to the world?
Well, you couple that with people who hold some of the highest elected offices in our country who refuse to condemn an insurrection on January 6th.
Okay, hold up a second. I want everyone to listen to me. I don't care if you are a Democrat. I don't care if you're a Republican. I don't care if you're an independent. Listen to me. January 6th was not an insurrection. I am so tired of hearing people on the left push this blatantly false narrative and using it to vilify not only January 6th protesters, but anyone who isn't firmly in the Democrats' camp. Look, nearly every discussion that I have with a liberal these days winds up with them bringing up the coup attempt or the attempted overthrow, or as Harris put it, the insurrection. A few thousand unarmed boomers marching on the Capitol and being allowed in by Capitol Police, as shown in many videos, does not constitute an insurrection. Look, it was stupid. I mean, moronically stupid. But it was not an insurrection. Stop lying about what happened and stop using it as an excuse to paint anyone who opposes you as a radical. Not that I would expect honesty from the Democrats at this point, who are desperate to have anything that makes them look good, even if only by comparison.
Look what happened in Kansas on the issue of choice. People whoever they voted for in the last election or in the next, stood up and said it is not right that we take a constitutional right from the women of America and deprive them of the ability to make decisions about their own body, and instead say the government's in a better position to do that.
This is Vice President Harris telling an outright lie. Now, I'll get to that in a second, but first, using the abortion vote in Kansas is a stupid play on Democrats' part. People in Kansas voted not to amend their state constitution to ban abortions. While Democrats are counting that vote as a win, which they should, they seem to be missing the larger and more important point. Kansas voted at the state level to keep abortion legal. The state level is exactly where this decision should be made, not at the federal level. The Supreme Court was correct in striking down Roe v. Wade and sending it back to the states because it's a state issue. The vote in Kansas proves that point. Democrats may not be smart enough to make that distinction, but nearly every independent that I've spoken with is. Now to the big lie here, and one that all Democrats seem to be pushing. Let me refresh your memory quick.
It is not right that we take a constitutional right from the women of America?
This is a lie. I can't say it any more clearly than that. Kamala Harris is lying to the American people on national television. And the propaganda ministry is not only not bothering to call her out on it, they're parroting her lie. Abortion is not now, nor has it ever been, a constitutional right. Period. The problem is, Democratic strategists know that there are a lot of low information voters out there, and this lie will be believed by the vast majority of their base. You know, those people who couldn't pass a civics test on a dare. When you hear this lie, whether it's out in your daily life or on social media, whatever, challenge it. Call these liars out for intentionally spreading misinformation.
What is a semi-fascist?
Listen, I think that let's not get caught up in politicizing the fact that most people in America know that it is not helpful to our country when we have people who are denying elections or trying to obstruct the outcome of an election where the largest number of people in our country voted for the President of the United States.
Notice how she doesn't answer his question? She stumbles for a full 12 seconds before she answers a question that wasn't even asked. She goes into a rambling statement about people denying an election where the largest number of people in our history voted for the president. What does that have to do with Chuck Todd's question about defining what a semi-fascist is? Nothing. She completely evaded the question, and this chimp from the propaganda ministry, Chuck Todd, just sits there with a stupid look on his face while he lets her get away with it. Also, playing devil's advocate here, more people voted for Donald Trump in the 2020 election than have ever voted for any Republican presidential candidate in history. That doesn't have anything to do with Chuck Todd's question either.
When you see the Democratic Party and some parts of the party funding ads to promote some of these election deniers in primaries.
You pick up on that? Chuck Todd carrying water there for Harris and the Democrats, jumping right on that election denier label.
Whether it's Michigan, the high-profile race there, Illinois, Colorado, New Hampshire. It looks like a little bit cynical. And the president went out of his way to say there are good Republicans here. Should you leave the good Republicans alone in a primary? Is the Democratic Party making a mistake here by those people could win if you're not careful?
I mean, listen, I'm not going to tell people how to run their campaigns. I ran in terms of statewide office.
Would you have done this? Would you have done this? Is this something you'd be comfortable with?
I'm not going to tell people how to run their campaigns, Chuck. I ran for a statewide for Attorney General, re-election, won both times, for Senate, won that race, and I know that it is best to let a candidate, along with their advisors, let them make the decision based on what they believe is in the best interest of their state.
Deflection after deflection after deflection from Harris. She will not answer the question. And Chuck Todd is not going to hold her feet to the fire. The fact of the matter is, the ends justify the means for Democrats. If that means interfering in Republican primaries and elections, so be it. They don't care about winning honestly or fairly, only that they win. Harris should have publicly stated that she didn't think interfering in the process was a wise strategy and moved on. Instead, she made an ass out of herself by not distancing herself and the president from this questionable behavior.
I'm not going to tell people what
You're
to do.
not worried that this reflects poorly on the Democrats?
I think that what we have to focus on is that in 60 days as of this interview, in less than 2 months, we are looking at a midterm election in which so much is on the line. Take, for example, the issue of choice. The United States Supreme Court in the Dobbs decision just took a constitutional right that had been recognized from the women of America, from the people of America.
Now, to his credit, Chuck Todd does give Kamala Harris another opportunity here, an opportunity to distance herself from those interfering in the Republican elections. But instead of being smart enough to take that opportunity, she goes into another bumbling rant about abortion, where again, she tells the lie about the constitutional right of abortion being taken away from women.
Well, how does that relate to the midterms? Our president has said he will not let the filibuster get in the way. If the Senate, through a majority vote, votes to pass the Women's Health Protection Act, He will sign it into law. You know what that means? In the midterms, we need to hold on to the Senate and get 2 more. And then we can put into law the protections of Roe v. Wade.
She still isn't answering the question. She still isn't distancing herself from Democrats interfering in the primary process of Republicans. And now she's attacking the filibuster. Checks and balances? Pfft, those are for other people, not Democrats.
When you were a senator, you weren't ready to get rid of the legislative filibuster as of 2017. What has changed?
Well, let's talk about what we have seen around the country, in particular after together with Joe Biden, when we won and he became president and I became vice president, which was as a result of some of the highest number of people voting that have ever voted in a presidential election. And then you almost saw, almost immediately, so-called extremist leaders around the country starting to pass laws making it more difficult for people to vote.
Again, evading the question, pushing the lie. Seeing a pattern here?
Are you comfortable that this could end the legislative filibuster for good? Probably, even if you
No, I'm
only
not.
try to do it
No,
for
I'm
2
not.
issues, that it
No,
won't
I'm
end
not.
up getting rid of it? You think it will be held into place on other issues?
I think that there are, that is very likely, yes.
Wait a second, you think which is likely? That this could mean the end of the filibuster, which, by the way, you and your party used over 300 times in 2020 alone? Or you think it means that your party won't end the filibuster? A little clarification would be awesome.
How much should former President Trump's status as a former president and a potential 2024 candidate, how much should that factor into the decision to charge him?
Well, I wouldn't dare tell the Department of Justice what to do. As a former prosecutor, I will tell you, I have I am not in the business of telling a prosecutor what to do with their case because they know best the facts and the evidence as applied to the law. And so I'm not going to tell them what to do. And certainly the president and I and our administration, unlike the previous administration,
Right.
have been very, very careful to make sure that there is no question about any kind of interference in terms of the decisions that the Department of Justice makes.
Oh, you cannot be serious. Outside of the most partisan of ideologues, there is nobody who believes that the Biden administration isn't involved with the witch hunt against Donald Trump and the unprecedented raid on his home at Mar-a-Lago. Frankly, I think even those hyper-partisans on the left believe that too. They just aren't honest enough to admit it.
We have some polling that shows confidence in the Supreme Court is at its lowest level that we've measured in over 20 years. How much confidence do you have in the Supreme Court?
I think this is an activist court.
Translation? The court has ruled in ways that I don't like, so instead of accepting their decision and working to change the law in meaningful ways within the boundaries of the Constitution, which I have sworn an oath to uphold, I'm going to brand the Supreme Court as activists. I'm going to vilify them, denigrate them, and marginalize them. And I'm going to use them as scapegoats in my quest to gain even more power.
What does that mean?
It means that we had an established right for almost half a century, which is the right of women to make decisions about their own body as an extension of what we have decided to be the privacy rights to which all people are entitled.
And back to the lie. The Supreme Court did not make abortion illegal. It did not tell women what they can or cannot do with their body. Although abortion really isn't about the woman's body, it's about the body of the baby she's murdering for her own convenience, but that's beside the point. They simply put the decision back at the state level, where it always should have been.
And this court took that constitutional right away.
Not a constitutional right, that's a lie.
And we are suffering as a nation because of it.
False. We are suffering as a nation because of your boss's anti-American, anti-energy, anti-business, anti-protecting American sovereignty policies, which are destroying the middle class with crushing inflation. Okay, for those of you who have stuck it out this far, thank you. I promise we are almost done. I've just got 2 more quick things to show you, and I promise I have saved the best for last.
We're here in Texas. I want to ask you about the border. Would you call the border secure?
I think that there is no question that we have to do what the president and I asked Congress to do. Is the first request we made. Pass a bill to create a pathway to citizenship. The border is secure. But we also have a broken immigration system, in particular over the last 4 years before we came in, and it needs to be fixed.
The border is secure? Are you kidding me? An estimated 4.9 million people have illegally crossed the border since Joe Biden took office less than 2 years ago. You won't finish the wall. Hell, you won't even visit the border acting in your official capacity as the border czar. Yet you want to tell another outright lie to the American people and say that the border is secure? By what measure, Madam Vice President, is the border secure? Please explain how a record number of illegal crossings this year is supposed to convince us that the border is secure. Also, a path to citizenship? No. Just no. Look, if you violate the borders of this country, if you come here illegally, you should lose the ability to ever become a citizen. Period. Full stop. Rewarding illegal aliens with citizenship was wrong under Reagan, and it is wrong now. Then she's blaming the Trump administration for the border crisis, which makes absolutely zero sense when you consider everything that Trump did to try to strengthen the border. I mean, this is the kind of stupid, moronic thing that I would expect to hear from AOC, not from the vice president.
We're going to have 2 million people cross this border for the first time ever. You're confident this border's secure?
We have a secure border in that is a priority for any nation, including ours and our administration.
Did you hear that, everybody? We have a secure border. Well, thank goodness. I guess we can rest easy now. Jesus, how the hell can she say this with a straight face? If there is a polar opposite of secure, that's what our southern border is. Then again, there she is trying to shift blame somehow to the Trump administration for the border crisis. Nobody, not even the most fervent Kool-Aid drinking leftist, can possibly agree with that. And if they say they do, they're lying just as much as Heels Up Harris is doing right there in that clip. What a collection of disingenuous, vapid responses from the Vice President of the United States. And what a cowardly, simping performance from that spineless Chuck Todd. This is the second highest elected government official in the country, openly lying to the people of the United States on national television. And she's being allowed to get away with it scot-free. She wasn't challenged, she wasn't held to the questions asked, and not once did Chuck Todd call her out on her unwillingness to tell the truth. The only takeaways from this farce of an interview are that Kamala Harris is willing to publicly humiliate herself in order to push the party's narrative, and the so-called press is happy as a pig in crap to let her get away with it. People, when we get to the midterms, remember this interview. Remember the lies that Kamala Harris told you about constitutional rights being taken away. Remember the deflections about her boss calling half of the country semi-fascists. Remember her calling the Supreme Court activists for doing their jobs and for having the audacity to rule in a way that the left might not like. Remember her calling those who want transparency and fair elections extremists and election deniers. Remember her telling you lie after lie after lie with no consequence. Give her the consequence in November. Take back the House, take back the Senate, and make this moron and her boss lame ducks for the remainder of their term. That's my take. What's your take? You can let me know your take in the comments below. You can also let me know your take by joining the cult at Pol Pop Cult on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Rumble, and Truth Social. Thank you for listening.